Have you ever felt like maybe history isn't just a random series of events? That maybe there's a pattern to it all? For thousands of years, people have looked into ancient prophecies, searching for a kind of map of the past, and maybe, just maybe, a glimpse of the future. Well, today we're diving headfirst into one of the most famous prophecies of all time, one that claims to lay out the rise and fall of great empires, all from a single terrifying dream. So that's the big question, right? Could a dream from over 2.5 millennia ago actually predict all of this? We're going to unpack a vision from the biblical book of Daniel, a vision that has absolutely fascinated scholars for centuries. So let's get into it and see what this ancient dream is really all about. All right, so picture this. We're back around 600 BC in Babylon. This is the center of the world, the most powerful empire on the planet. And its king, Nebuchadnezzar, has just had a dream that's rattled him to his very core. But here's the kicker. He can't remember what it was. So he calls in all his magicians, his so-called wise men, and gives them an impossible task. He says, "Don't just tell me what the dream means. You have to tell me what I dreamed in the first place." I mean, no pressure, right? Of course, they can't do it, and they're all about to be executed. The stage is set for a total long shot. A young Hebrew captive named Daniel. He's the last resort, and he steps up and says his God can reveal the king's secret. So Daniel stands before the most powerful man alive and just lays it all out, describing the vision perfectly. He talks about this huge, terrifying statue, a single image made of different metals, one after another. But here's the thing. This isn't just some bad pizza dream. Daniel says it's way more than that. It's a prophetic timeline of world history. Okay, so let's break this thing down. Daniel explains that each section of the statue, each different metal, stands for a major world empire. And they're not just random. They're destined to rise and fall in a very specific order. And this is the moment the dream goes from being just a weird vision to what many believe is a jaw-droppingly accurate forecast of history. First up, the head of gold. Daniel looks the king right in the eye and tells him, You are this head of gold. He straight up identifies this first, most glorious part of the statue with Nebuchadnezzar's own magnificent kingdom, the Babylonian Empire. But, as we all know, empires don't last forever. The dream predicted that a second kingdom, not quite as glorious, represented by silver, would come next. And sure enough, what does history tell us? The Medo-Persian Empire rolls in and conquers Babylon in 539 BC. Check. After the silver comes bronze. The prophecy says this third kingdom would rule over the whole earth. And this points directly to the absolutely meteoric rise of Alexander the Great and his Greek Empire, which just blazed across the known world, completely crushing the Persians. And then we get to the fourth kingdom. And the way the prophecy describes this one is, well, it's intense. It's represented by iron, a metal that's way stronger, way tougher than gold, silver, or bronze. The vision says it will break in pieces and crush everything that came before it. Honestly, could there be a better description for the sheer, unstoppable military might of the Roman Empire? But the dream isn't over yet. Right in the middle of this fourth Iron Kingdom's reign, something totally unexpected happens. A stone, and get this, it's cut without human hands, comes out of nowhere and smashes the statue on its feet. And the whole thing, this entire history of human empire, just crumbles into dust. And then that stone starts to grow and grow until it becomes a giant mountain that fills the entire world, a kingdom that the prophecy says will never be destroyed. Now, if you're thinking, wow, that's pretty compelling, hold on, because there's more. The book of Daniel gives us a second vision that backs this one up. This time, it's Daniel himself who has the dream, and he sees 4 huge beasts rising up out of the sea. And would you believe it, the sequence is identical. A lion for Babylon, a bear for Medo-Persia, a leopard with 4 heads, which perfectly represents Greece being split into 4 kingdoms after Alexander the Great died. And then comes that 4th beast, a terrifying, indescribable creature with, wait for it, great iron teeth. It's a perfect mirror of the iron legs from the statue. 2 different visions, same exact timeline. So while those first 3 empires seem to line up pretty neatly with history, the identity of that 4th, world-crushing power, well, that's where a huge debate has been raging for centuries. Was it really Rome, or could it have been something else? So let's wade into this debate, because figuring this part out is the key to unlocking the whole message of the prophecy. All right, so here's the breakdown. On one side, you have the traditional Christian interpretation that's been around forever, which says the Iron Kingdom is, without a doubt, Rome. But on the other side, you have a more rationalist view that argues the Fourth Kingdom was actually the Greek kingdoms that came after Alexander, specifically the one ruled by Antiochus Epiphanes, a guy famous for persecuting the Jews. So, how do we sort this out? Well, in the book The Great Argument, William Hanna Thomson makes a really compelling case against the Greek interpretation. His logic is pretty straightforward. First, the prophecy says the Fourth Kingdom will be totally diverse and way more powerful than the Third. But the Greek kingdoms that came after Alexander, they were just broken pieces of the original Bronze Empire, not something new and stronger. And far from devouring the whole earth, the kingdom of Antiochus was actually getting weaker and was, ironically, being eaten up by a new rising power, Rome. So if you follow that line of thinking, there's really only one candidate left that fits the bill: Rome. Its raw strength, its incredible discipline, its power to crush nations all the way from Britain to the Middle East, it just perfectly matches the description of that empire of iron that stepped onto the world stage right after Greece. And once you lock in Rome as that Fourth Kingdom, the prophecy's grand finale, the arrival of that mysterious stone cut without hands, suddenly takes on a whole new, profound meaning. Just think about the language used here. The prophecy describes human empires as a force that breaks things. It conquers, it crushes, it bruises. Its power is purely destructive. But then you look at the stone. It's the complete opposite. It doesn't just destroy, it grows. It fills the whole earth. It's a creative force, not a destructive one. This is the kingdom that doesn't come from human ambition. It comes from God. So, when you put it all together, what's the ultimate point? According to this interpretation, the prophecy lays out this grand sweep of history just to show us how fragile human empires really are. They're all just temporary stages, setting the scene for a totally different kind of kingdom. A spiritual one, born during the time of the Roman Empire, that will outlast them all and eventually fill the earth. This, of course, is identified as the kingdom of Christ. I mean, the parallels between what the prophecy laid out and what actually happened in history are, well, they're pretty stunning, to say the least. It really forces you to ask a pretty big question. If this ancient dream really did map out the fall of Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome, and even predicted the rise of a spiritual kingdom that's still growing today, what does that imply about where history is still heading? Now that is something to think about.